never buy a property that's occupied at foreclosure auction. There's a lot of reasons why. Now, I'm specifically talking about Massachusetts. One of the biggest things in Massachusetts specifically is there are a lot of rights for occupants and tenants. So the biggest thing with buying an occupied property, first off, is if it's the former owner, they're often going to contest the foreclosure. This is where they're going to bring in the bank and to say that there was wrongful foreclosure. That means that the bank or someone did something wrong. Now, while something wrong might be as simple as the fact that they didn't cross a T or dot an I, which often is the case, which seems unfortunately a little disingenuous because they were also did something wrong. They didn't pay the mortgage. Now, this is if it's the owner, obviously if it's a tenant, different story. But like they didn't clearly pay what they had, kind of agreed to in the mortgage, and for the bank to kind of get, just for lack of a better term, screwed because they didn't cross a T or dot an I. Now that sucks, but it is the law, and it is what we have going on. At least Massachusetts and Connecticut and many other states, especially after COVID, there's a lot of this contesting of these foreclosures, and so banks are very apprehensive to foreclose on, especially if they're occupied. But they still are doing it because they have a business to run and they need to kind of keep moving forward. The issue where it comes into is getting often title insurance can be a little bit more difficult if it's occupied, because the title company is very apprehensive to offer some kind of insurance on that because there's so many contesting of it. So that can be a big thing to be really mindful of, that you could get tied up in the court process when they're contesting these things. And so while maybe you don't own the property at that point, but you might be waiting for clean title, so your deposit could be kind of held up. Now, luckily in Mass, the deposits typically are only about $5,000 to $10,000, so it's not like the end of the world. But if you're just getting started, or if you're just looking for a home for yourself, that could really take a long time and a lot of wind out of your sail, and you might not have a whole bunch more money to put down temporarily, especially if you're using maybe hard money loan or whatever for the actual acquisition and doing all the rehab. So that's going to really kind of change your strategy. So buying occupied not possibly be the best avenue for you. So that's why I'd really be apprehensive for you to kind of take that route. The other thing is, you don't know really what you're getting. So you getting into a situation, whether it be owner or a tenant, you're coming into possibly a bunch of code violations that they're claiming, or there could be a lot of things that they're going on inside, maybe drug issues. We've had that many times, unfortunately. We just actually had one. This was actually one. So unfortunately, this one was an owner, and he also ran into, unfortunately, a drug problem. After that, was all came from the neighbor, and unfortunately some police reports. And this owner ran into a drug issue, and unfortunately went really downhill. That's probably also why they stopped their mortgage and all their other bills. But that delayed everything. On top of that, they were so many open code violations. We're still working on resolving them. So we finally got the occupant out, which took about 6 months. So that's something, once again, 6 months, that's carrying cost before we really got to work on the property. Now, you can do some work on the exterior, hide it, roof it while people are in there, clearly. But the majority of the work was done inside, which we'll go in there and I'll show you that too. But we couldn't really do a lot of that in work, so it took a lot longer. And then on top of that, code enforcement was involved in all these lengthy violations for many years. And then we couldn't get them resolved, and we had to go in front of the court. We had to, let them know. And so come Monday, they're doing final inspection. They really want to know that this is done, and that they can close the code violation report. They're not looking to have this open, but clearly they're happy that they are getting a property back on the tax roll. That's going to be a really nice property for a new homeowner once we're finished with it, which we are so close. But it took a lot longer because it was occupied. And then on top of that, the gentleman having, issues with drugs and other stuff that we have to deal with in the kind of interim. So, this is something that you don't really know what you're going to get. Already you're buying an unknown, property. You don't typically get to walk in these foreclosures. You don't literally get to see, and do a typical home inspection and stuff like that. You're not going to have all that information. And so you're buying a mystery box. So now on top of that, the adding to the mystery box is having it as occupied, and that just adds a whole nother element. Now, that's, from my experience, Kevin's experience in Massachusetts and Connecticut, maybe in your states it's very different. So really want to know the laws around occupied. Are they considered squatters? Are they is there a difference between owner occupied and tenant occupied? Because often that also will change the case of what kind of notice you will provide them once you become the owners and you want them to vacate. But that's going to be something you really want to talk to your local legal team to help you with that. I really, really recommend. This is one of the keys and I see time and time again that people seek out advice, but the wrong advice. So while it is important to have a lawyer, it's more important to have a lawyer that specializes in what you're looking for. So we have many lawyers. We don't have just one. We have a tenant landlord lawyer. We have a closing attorney for our residential. We have a closing attorney for our commercial. We have a entertainment lawyer. We have a lawyer that also handles some of our other employee issues. So we have a special lawyer that focuses on those laws, because if you ever look at the law books, which I personally don't care to, but if you ever look at it, they're huge, and that's just and all the case law that represents around one type of law. It's really important that you have someone that is a little bit more hands-on with that specific stuff so that they can better give you a more informed opinion that, once again, you're still going to make your own business decisions, but you want someone to advise you that has more knowledge, more experience in the specific field that you're looking for help on. All right, so we are in the house that I was talking about that's occupied, and so there were tons of issues here with the flooring. You could see through into the basement. The heating system wasn't fully functional. We also had, on top of that, the kitchen was just practically not even usable. We've completely replaced that, obviously. The big issue was over here in the bathroom, which is kind of tight, but the shower valve, there was no wall here. You just had floating pipes and floating shower valve, and that's how they were using it. And there was kind of a trash bag kind of held over it. We also had the lovely black room. This was all black with kind of glitter over it. And, you didn't really, couldn't really see that because they often put the shades down when they're occupied. They'll put the shades down so you can't, unfortunately, look inside when you're at the foreclosure auction. Other than that, really there wasn't too many unknowns that, we didn't see. But this was the kind of big thing, is why I say don't buy an occupied property. This project should have been done if we had been vacant. We would have been already on the market, sold, and now we are nearing, so we are right now in September. It's going to be on the market hopefully next week. It looks like we're just about done. Unfortunately, electrician still needs to wire the microwave. But realistically, we'll get this all done, get it on the market, have final inspection next week, and we'll help this out quickly. But when you're factoring in your holding costs, if you do want to go an occupied property, what I would honestly look to, figure out what your average eviction time for a tenant may be, or if it differs from an occupant, and which one's longer, and talk to your local tenant landlord lawyer. What does the typical time take from, and factor that cost in, and then maybe factor in some months also for the possible contesting of a foreclosure. Now, one thing that happened one time, hasn't really happened, is that we actually closed on the property and then they contested the foreclosure, and that took a year plus, and that was just insane. But that it can happen, so it's something you want to be very careful with when you're buying property at foreclosure. While you can get some stellar deals, you can also get hit really hard with a lot of costs that you don't anticipate. So while I see some of these newer investors at foreclosure auctions, which commend them for getting out there, looking at different ways to acquire property, their bidding seems ridiculous to me. And I think some of it is just lack of experience. And they don't have experience with occupied properties and haven't been bit in the ass like some of us, Kevin, that they just don't have that experience, and so therefore they're thinking, oh yeah, no big deal, normal eviction, normal, get them out, no problem. I'll talk them out, cash for keys, whatever. Well, cash for keys can be a great way. It's not always a definite that that's gonna happen. So I wouldn't bank on it. I would hope to try to make that work. And Kevin, what we call Kevin is he tries to shippy him. He's usually pretty good, but he's not always the best on it. In the fact that he doesn't always have the most luck. While he's awesome at talking to people and doing all that, if someone doesn't want to move, or they're just stuck in their mind that they're in the right, they're not going to move. And all the money in the world might just not make it happen. I would recommend trying to get creative. So one idea that has been, which I think I was talking to someone else who has a property that's occupied right now. I believe they bought it at foreclosure auction. It doesn't matter really if it was foreclosure or not, but they bought an occupied property and they're trying to figure out, oh, do I give them a lot more time? This is gonna suck. I'm gonna sit in the property a while. And they were telling me that the guys doesn't have any family, doesn't have, I think he's just looking to, I guess he's got some kind of terminal illness, which is really sad. But I'm like, well, what is he looking to do? Oh, he'd like to see the world. I'm like, so why not work out a creative solution of possibly buying the person some kind of a used or some kind of RV that they can then go travel and live out their last of their days or whatever, experiencing the rest of the world or the United States or wherever they might be. And they said that was kind of really cool and creative. So maybe I don't know if they're going to do that, but that is thinking outside the box on how finding a win-win situation with the tenant or occupant and you, where you need the property obviously vacant as soon as possible so you can get things cranking. And therefore, the occupant can also have a win so that they can move on to something that they're looking to do. Because most people, I don't think, are looking to really stall and really want to be, a thorn in your side, but they just don't have anything else. And if you can offer them some kind of other alternative, especially if it's creative like that, that might really be a win-win situation, and that you find that you're able to move on much faster. So just back to the takeaway on this. Once again, we've bought hundreds of properties at foreclosure auction. Really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions or comments, leave there. We're happy to answer them about occupied properties. Now, once again, we're not lawyers. We can only tell you what our experience has been, especially in our states that we buy stuff in, but we're happy to share anything that we can, so you guys can learn from our mistakes. Thanks again, and I hope you guys see you on the next video. And don't forget to hit that bell notification icon, because it seems like YouTube's not telling you guys all that, hey, we got new videos, even though we're coming out with new videos every week. So make sure you hit that notification so you know about these things, all right? Thanks so much. Have a great day.